On today's episode of Locked On Wild, the Wild have lucky number 13 in the NHL draft this year. And for being an unlucky number, there's some pretty good success in that spot throughout the draft history.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. We thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Ultimate Hockey GM. Have you ever dreamed of becoming an NHL GM and managing your hockey franchise? Well, now you can with Ultimate Hockey GM. It is completely free, and Locked On listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in the game store. To download the game, just visit hockeygm.app or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate Hockey GM. Start your dynasty today. On today's episode, Isha Jahromi of the Sota Pod joins us as we take a look at the history of the 13th overall pick in the NHL draft. We'll also define kind of what we assume as the standard for success for a draft pick based off of where they get selected. And we'll take a look at some of the players that lasted the longest out of that spot. My name is Seth Topal, your daily Minnesota Wild insider. As mentioned, good friends of the show, the Sota Pod, Isha Jahromi joining us for his weekly crossover. And we're continuing on the fun theme here a little bit, Isha, but we are getting back to it because, can you believe it? The NHL draft is already next week.
Oh, yeah. And that's the biggest event that the Sota Pod hosts on YouTube. So be sure to join us there, all you loyal Locked On viewers, as Seth will be literally at the Sota Pod headquarters as we're setting up all night streaming. I think last year we went like 5 hours, right? We went like 3 hours past the draft. Jeez. So excited for everybody to join us. Excited for Seth to be here at headquarters. And yeah, we're going to have a lot of guests, both from the Minnesota podcast world, as well as some who cover the Minnesota or who cover other teams in the National Hockey League as we bring them in for certain picks here and there. So it's going to be a fun night. We're starting half an hour before the draft. So at 5:30 p.m. Central. And yeah, we're going all night with your host, Spoke Z, expert Spoke Z, leading the charge.
You are putting Spoke Z in the driver's chair. I hope you have buckled your seatbelts. No, in all seriousness, that's going to be
Hoppy and I aren't drinking right off the hop. So if we need someone to step in, then Hoppy's riding full producer. He's hitting switches and controls. He's not even coming to headquarters. He's staying in his den so that temptation doesn't get in the way.
So it'll be the Sota Pod live draft stream, a State of Hoppy production.
Yes, dude, he's going all out. We have, no joke, for every pick, we're going to have videos and montages of the player highlights, pages of every single one. Like, yeah, this is our biggest show on the Sota Pod every single year, and we're going from like 0 to 100, 5 to 100. We got to give ourselves a little bit of credit for the last few years. But no, there's been a lot in the works, and we're really excited for it. So be sure to join us, guys, on Friday.
And that's why I joined, because then I don't have to do any of that. And I can
exactly. You just get to drink beer and eat 7th Avenue pizzas.
Just hang out and be part of it. That's why we do it. So
yeah, it's going to be awesome.
We've got a lot coming at you. I'm sure we will have some draft content for you for our crossover next week, because since we'll all be in the same area, we can just record all of that at that time. So we'll have plenty of draft recap for you throughout the week next week. But with the Wild picking at number 13, thought it would be a cool idea today to just look at how successful that spot has been throughout draft history. Isha, we both took a look at this. There have been some misses, as there are with every pick throughout the draft. But I was actually surprised to see the number of players that, 900, 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 games. There are a lot of guys in that spot.
Stanley Cup champions as well,
that have gone on to play long careers. And so I guess that's a good spot to start before we get into the names. I feel like if you are a player, like let's just use the first name for example, Matthias Oland for Vancouver, was a defenseman.
My boy.
Drafted in 1994. He played until 2010, 2011. So that's a 16-year.
909 games.
I feel like that's a great barometer for success. Like if you can put together a 15-year NHL career.
Oh, yeah. Well, Seth, he would have played a couple more years if his knees weren't shot. Like his last year with the Tampa Bay Lightning, or his last 2 years, right? Like he signed that contract hurt and he thought he could keep playing. And, evidently like he fell off a cliff there. But yeah, if his, I don't know how many knee surgeries he had, but if his knees would have held up even like a few more years, man, he would have hit 1,000 games.
Jeez Louise. Yeah. He
was
went from Vancouver to the Tampa Bay Lightning for the final couple of seasons. Wasn't a huge points producer. He did finish with 93 goals in 909 games and cracked double digits a few times, but was a bit more successful from a playoff perspective with goals and points than he was during the regular season, which is always what you love to see.
He was a top pairing guy, and he was just that, a defensive defenseman, right? He wouldn't join the rush or anything like that, and he was big, man. He was a monster. Yeah, he is absolutely beloved in Vancouver.
6'4", 233. That's a truck. That's a semi in the defenseman realm. So we'll put 1994 in the success. We'll put that in the success column. Now, wow, this is not bad for a number two. When you go to 1995, the 13th overall pick, a guy that a lot of Minnesota Wild fans are probably going to just cringe at hearing the name, because the longest playoff run in Minnesota Wild franchise history stopped ice cold by this man. He was Jean-Sébastien Giguère. 596 total games, drafted in 1995. He played to 2013, 2014. And so you want to talk about a lengthy run. Started with the Hartford Whalers, became the Calgary Flames, the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, the Anaheim Ducks, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Colorado Avalanche. In that season in which the Minnesota Wilds made their lengthy run, he started 21 games in the postseason and just completely stymied them in that Western Conference final.
Yeah, dude, he was incredible. He was absolutely incredible. Won the Conn Smythe in 2002, 2003 as well. And yeah, I know John Gibson is one of the best American goaltenders right now, but with the lack of success for the Ducks, like Giguère will still go down as the best goalie in their franchise history. And yeah, he was so good, man, especially playing on those absolutely stacked Ducks teams in the early 2000s and, towards the end of that decade as well.
Just an insane run. Couple of nice postseason runs for Giguère with
2006-07, man, when he won the cup. Holy shit. It was crazy in 2002, 2003. And this is I said he won the Conn Smythe in a year that he didn't even win the Stanley Cup. That's how out of his mind he played. He was not on the Stanley Cup winning team, and he still won the Conn Smythe.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So safe to say that was also a successful pick at 13. We'll go through one more, and then we'll sneak a break in here. Let's go to 1996. I think we're 3 for 3 as Calgary takes with the 13th overall pick from the Regina Pats of the WHL.
I'm sorry. I just love how you Americans call it Regina. It's Regina. I know you guys don't like to say it, but get your head out of the gutter.
That's the Minnesota. That's the Minnesota in me. The Gina is what it is actually. But Derek Morris.
Yes,
6
good
foot,
one.
210. He played all told in 1,100 games, had 92 goals, 332 assists, 1,004 PIMs in 1,107 games, and a couple of one in particular, one lengthy postseason run with the Phoenix Coyotes. But again, Calgary to Colorado to Phoenix to the Rangers to the Bruins, back to Phoenix. He started in 97-98. He played till 13-14. This is another success.
That's another. Let me squeeze one more quick before break. Ron Hainsey in 2000, drafted by the Montreal Canadiens and had a lengthy career as well. So drafted by the Canadiens, played only 2 seasons there, then went to Columbus, Atlanta, Winnipeg, Carolina, Pittsburgh, where he won the Stanley Cup in 2016-17, Toronto, and had his last season, funny enough, in 2019-20 for the Ottawa Senators, 1,132 games.
I love that in 16-17, he played more postseason games than he did actual regular season games.
Dude, he went from 2002, 2003, when he made his debut with the Montreal Canadiens. He did not play in a single NHL playoff game until, like you said, 2016-17. So, like, he paid his dues, man.
Yeah, no kidding. Jeez. So, yes, 2000, another good success for the pick number 13. We got a bunch more to get to here throughout the rest of the show. And don't worry, we'll mix in a couple of swings and misses because, of course, there are some. But we will continue to take a look at the history of the 13th pick in the NHL draft. That's all on the way as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Ultimate Hockey GM. Hey, Locked On Wild fans, let's take a second to talk about one of our partners, the mobile game Ultimate Hockey GM. Have you ever dreamed of becoming an NHL GM and managing your hockey franchise? Do you think you could run the Minnesota Wild better than Bill Guerin? Well, your dream can come true, and that is because this game is definitely right up your alley. You can manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the seasons, and lead them to glory. Hire the right coaches and staff, trade players or draft picks, navigate through free agency and the draft, all in a challenging and realistic game world. As a Wild fan, you know there is no off-season. GMs are constantly making moves at every point of the year to improve their team's chances, and that's why I think you're going to love Ultimate Hockey GM. Ultimate Hockey GM is completely free and playable offline. You can play on the go as you want, when you want to. Plus, Locked On Network listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit hockeygm.app. That's hockeygm.app or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate Hockey GM. Start your dynasty today. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. We got a bonus episode coming for you later this afternoon, Locked On Wild listeners, as we will take a look at a few more draft profiles. We're trying to get you set for as many names as could possibly be an option for the Wild at pick 13. We'll cycle back to them once the actual pick is made. And we've got some reaction from Locked On NHL prospects to discuss with many players that we've already talked about. So that will be on tomorrow's show. And again, don't forget to check out Sunday's live show. Denny has a guest reveal that is going to absolutely knock your socks off. I had to pick myself up off the floor when he told me who we have, not for this Sunday, but for a week from Sunday. The reveal is on Sunday. So make sure you're sitting down and get ready for the big reveal and get ready to hear about some of the things that Denny would do in the GM's chair. That's coming up on Sunday at noon. Be there or be square. Isha, let's continue to take a look at the 13th pick.
I'm excited for this next one, Seth. This guy, I feel like, for those who've been watching hockey their whole lives, especially those like, in their 30s, above, they will recognize this name, and he has almost a cult following. No joke. Like, for example, like my roommate Joe, when I brought up his name, he's like, oh my God, he was one of my favorite players. And I was like, get out of here. Because the people who know him and appreciate him, like, love him. And that is Ales Hemsky, ladies and gentlemen. What a nasty, nasty player. And it sucks that upon being drafted by the Edmonton Oilers, he had some early, success with them in 2002, 2003, making the postseason. And then in the 2004, 2005 lockout, he actually went to the Czech League and won a championship with his team. Came back to the Edmonton Oilers, had a good run in 2005, 2006, but then pretty much until he was on the Dallas Stars in 2015-16, no playoff success, and was part of the dark years of the Edmonton Oilers. Having said that, he was one of their best players. Despite him only getting a career high of 23 goals in the National Hockey League, dude, his hands were nasty. I cannot describe how much of an honor it was to watch this guy play, and it hurt my soul that he was on that horrendous Edmonton Oilers team. And when he finally moved on and was able to play 3 years with the Dallas Stars, put up some decent points, 39 points in 75 games of 2015-16, and then just kind of fell off after that and retired in 2018. But Ales Hemsky, man, such a fun player to watch. And in 2001 for the Edmonton Oilers, he was the 13th overall pick.
And he hits that 15-year mark again. This is a great part of the draft that sometimes goes under discussed, is you can have a player that is, just a really, really good player, but doesn't get a chance to show it as much as you would hope because of the team that they're on.
Or in my next pick, you could have a player who, in my opinion, was anyways, in the height of his career, more talented than a Sidney Crosby, but just didn't have the drive, wasn't the same, Jordan, didn't have that same Jordan mentality, for lack of a better term. And that was the 2002 pick for the Washington Capitals, Alexander Semin. Dude, this guy had some of the nastiest deeks and dangles I've ever seen. He wasn't physical at all, but my God, when Ovi, when Mike Green, when Nicholas Backstrom were all developing together, dude, Alexander Semin was an insanely good goal scorer. Hit the 40-goal mark in 2009, 2010, hit 34 goals in 62 games the year prior, and had 90 points and 38 goals in his second year with the Washington Capitals. He played 1 year in 2003, 2004, then went back to the KHL for a few years. But upon returning and developing and being ready to go, dude, he was so fun to watch. He just didn't have that win mentality, and that's what held him back. But my friends and people who have talked to in the hockey world have said, no, at the time, he was more talented than Sidney Crosby. He just didn't put it all together.
And that's why, you can have all the talent in the world, but there's that killer instinct that you either have it. Yeah, you either have it or you don't. And that's where the players who have that can be more successful than the players that don't, because you just get in those moments. You have those moments throughout games, especially in the postseason, where it's you either have to do what you got to do or you don't. You don't take advantage of those opportunities, and some of those guys, it's just an instinct thing.
And he played a very heavy European style where he wouldn't take the body, he wouldn't dig in the corner, but if he was just my job is to be offense, score, put up points, dude. He did his job for a good run with the Capitals there.
Speaking of, the word I'm gonna use for this next guy is just machine, because you look at the Los Angeles Kings in 2003, 13th overall pick. This dude was playing up until 2 years ago, and you look at the numbers that he put up. Consistent contributor, played literally his entire career with the Los Angeles Kings. Dustin Brown, dude,
so awesome. Team USA guy as well, right? Through and through, Olympic team, IHF. Dude, I absolutely love Dustin Brown, man, and just such a warrior, and kind of the opposite from that of an Alex Semin. Didn't have all the talent in the world, but didn't need to, because he worked so much harder than guys who were more talented than him. And that is why he lasted so long. And dude, the amount of injuries that he played through and still produced, amazing. So Yeah, it's crazy to think that almost 1,300 games and retired recently as well. So a lot of longevity for Dustin Brown, who continued to produce, right until the end.
From 2011, 2012 to 2013, 2014, he scored 17 postseason goals. Three different postseasons of 18 plus games. Obviously, 2011, 2012 had 8 goals in 20 games and 20 points. The big one, though, 2013, 2014. And he had 6 goals, 8 assists in that postseason run, too. Like, dude just got it done.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that I think a lot of teams really look for is the players that they're not going to put up much of a fuss when push comes to shove, they're just going to go get it done.
Yeah. Now, I honestly didn't have another notable pick between 2003 and 2011. I will speak on the 2011 one here in a moment, but did you have anybody of note between 2003 and 2011?
No, I'm just kind of scanning through some of the names here. Like there were some definite swings and misses. Marek Zagrapan in 2005 did not play a single game at the NHL level for the Buffalo Sabres. So that's a major swing and miss in 2005. You go to 2010, Brandon Gormley, 58 total games at the NHL level.
Big guy. Like he was projected to be that big defenseman, but yeah, it didn't work out for him.
Yeah.
In 2011, I was actually very excited to see the Calgary Flames select Sven Baertschi, and he played a good chunk of his career with the Vancouver Canucks as well. Dude, this guy had all the talent in the world, had all the drive in the world, and glimpses of, first line potential. Concussions derailed his career, man. And you look at, he never played a full season. The most games he ever played was 69 games. And then 68 right after that. He produced. And then the year after that, 53 games, had 30 points. And just that year in 2017-18, though the Canucks weren't that great at the time, he was one of the top line guys playing alongside Bo Horvat. And it just sucked that, his brain just got rattled way too much. And he played, and he's since retired, but he played his last season back in the Swiss League. And he was just a shadow of what he used to be. So that was one of those what ifs. I do think it was a great pick at 13, but it was one of those what ifs, and it was derailed due to injury.
Yeah, that is 100%. Just one of those situations that you really can't control.
No.
Like it's one of those. One of the great what ifs in sports for me is always going to be, what would Ken Griffey Jr.'s career have looked like if he hadn't been derailed by injury? And so sometimes. That's just how it goes.
Well, I mean, look at Nolan Patrick, right? Now I know we're talking about 13 picks, but he was a top guy, right? And
yeah,
before he's even done his junior career, he had hip surgeries, hip or back surgeries, I forget, but major surgery, right? And it's just nothing. It's not his fault. Just the cards weren't dealt in his favor.
Yeah, exactly. The only other one that I'll bring up, and then we'll finish with 2012 to now. To end the show, is in 2008, the Los Angeles Kings picked Colton Talbert. 1 pick after Tyler Myers was taken, and 2 picks before Erik Karlsson. So that's kind of a yikes sandwich.
That's a big
because
oof.
Talbert, he played in 24 career NHL games, and he was done. He was drafted in 2008. His last game played was 2011, 2012.
Another big boy, if I'm not mistaken, right? So they probably gambled on him. Okay, maybe he can skate at the NHL level and he can muck it up. But yeah, he was just always a step behind. I remember that pick, and I remember I watched him develop, and he was good against boys. He was a man amongst boys early. But yeah, when you translate that and the speed picks up, it was the speed and the hockey IQ, I just think wasn't there.
He was a PIM fiend with Regina in 2008, 2009. He had 136 PIMs in 60 games. So he was, like you said, he was a menace when the competition was at his level, but just could not.
He's like the Wish version of Eric Gudbranson. Played a similar style.
That's an amazing. The
fact that Eric Gudbranson is still around too blows my mind. But anyways, that's a story for another day.
Some guys just survive. So we'll finish 2012 to today, because obviously the closer we get to today, a lot of these players have not made their mark yet on the NHL or as much. But we'll talk about some of those names, and we'll finish with some final thoughts on pick 13 as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED, headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available for U.S. customers. One final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, make sure to check out all of the wonderful content at the Sota Pod. Did I see correctly, Isha, that Fellowship of the Rinks had Tony Ferraro on it?
Ray Ferraro.
Ray Ferraro.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cammy Granado's husband.
Elite get. And that coming off of Judd Brackett's appearance.
Dude, what a beauty. What a beauty.
That's a lot of fun.
That was awesome. I love like Hoppy's leading question was just like, so have you heard of a podcast called Judd's Buds? And he just like, yep. My brother actually messaged me after I got the Minnesota job and was like, you have a podcast? And he's like, nope. And if I wanted to start one now, the name is taken.
Hey,
but he listens to it, which is kind of concerning now that I think about it. But anyways.
Yeah, I have that thought from periodically of like, I just wonder how much of Wild Brass in general is like aware of Locked On Wild, because sometimes we go on rants, sometimes we yell into the cloud. Like, it's just one of those things where I'm always like, I wonder who's tuning in. But no,
Judd Brackett's awesome. He's one of the boys, and that was one of my favorite episodes so far.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and you and Hoppy had a great collaboration on that one too, as you filled in for Joe Smith. So I might actually watch The Boys now because you talked it up. I don't really listen to Hoppy's suggestions anymore because the guy doesn't like Trailer Park Boys or Kenny versus Spenny. So what does he know?
Unreal. Yeah, it was fun to nerd out a little bit because I'm huge into the comic books that become TV shows. Yeah. And The Boys has been 15.
I've heard good things. Yeah.
15 out of 10 for me ever since it started. I'm hooked. So I was happy to talk about it. So listeners, you can find that in addition to just full A+ weekly content from the Sota Pod. So make sure to check it out, whether it be MNCAA, Judd's Buds, Fellowship of the Rinks, Sota Pod discussions, my appearances throughout the week. They've got it all. Sota Pod has all of it.
Judd's Buds final Spoke Z's, I should say, and Hoppy's final mock draft will be available today as you're listening on Friday. And if you guys want to check out the video version, it is already on YouTube.
Excellent. I'll be listening to that as I am driving around taking care of some errands today while people are listening to this.
Hell yeah.
Let's finish with a few more names, Isha. 2012, the Dallas Stars selected Radek Faksa, who has
pick
so far 638 games under his belt, 89 goals, 111 points. Obviously, you've got some more prolific players, but it seems like Faksa it took him a little while to get going, but it seems like he's really starting to find his stride here.
Yeah, but he's a role player. You know what I mean? Like he's a third liner, two-way guy who can muck it up and shut down teams' top lines or their scoring depth lines. I think he has, like you said, found his stride and developed into the role that he is going to be in. Because even in the OHL, when he was drafted, like he wasn't like a 90 or like an 80 to 100 point player in junior. He was, 67 points in 62 games respectively. He was he was around that point per game style and played that two-way game there, which is probably why he didn't enter the top 10. But in 2012, which was a pretty weak draft, if I'm not mistaken. That was the Nail Yakupov and Ryan Murray. So that was a pretty weak draft anyways. So I've always liked Faska's game, and I think now like he's tough to play against, man.
2013 is going to be one that I think we look back on and say, man, Winnipeg really got this right.
Absolute steal, man. And talk about a guy who's really developed into his own, right? My God.
Josh Morrissey, who has always been, he's been a solid defenseman, and this year he really put the whole package together. Like, he added a ton of offense to his game, but he has been a solid defenseman for Winnipeg over the last few years. 69 or 69 points this year. He had 76 last year. And just a solid amount of work. And it's crazy that, you look at what he has done, and he's been basically a full season player for Winnipeg since 2016, 2017, like back-to-back 80-plus game seasons. The offense has been added to his repertoire as well, and just a outrageously solid pick for Winnipeg in 2013.
Coming off a championship with the Kelowna Rockets in the WHL his last season there as well. So just championship, mentality, despite Winnipeg not going all the way yet. He's had a lot of success with the Winnipeg Jets, and he's only missed the playoffs with them 3 times. And you said it, like, though he put up more points in 2022, 2023, you look at his plus minus this year, it went from 2 to 34. So like, he was involved in all the offense, despite only putting up 69 points in 81 games. No, this year was incredible for him.
This one is interesting, 2014, because this is almost like the case of Benjamin Button. Jacob Vrana, who was drafted by the Washington Capitals.
Won a Stanley Cup in 2017-18.
And was a 20-plus goal scorer in back-to-back years with the Capitals. He went to Detroit. It just never clicked.
Yeah. He also faced some, I will say, addiction issues. He was, fighting some demons as well, went into the player assistance program, and is just now kind of getting his stride back. He had an amazing run in the AHL this year, I will say.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully he gets an opportunity back in the show. Good to see him, back into a routine though, and from what I've heard, anyways, being able to fight those demons.
Yes, 100%. And those numbers with Springfield, 16 goals in 42 games. That's all you need. That's all another team needs, is to just see that kind of a sample size to give a guy another chance. And so, rooting for him to get that additional chance here, over these next couple of seasons. Next up in 2015, Jakub Zboril. I definitely did not pronounce that right.
Swinging a miss by the Boston Bruins, who remember they loaded up. I mean, he's fine, but they loaded up to pick like 3 picks in a row, and it was just like, man, you missed on a few good guys before and after.
You talk about an Oreo. You get Jake DeBrusk in the middle of Jakub Zboril and Zachary Senshin, who have not played in the NHL over the last year. DeBrusk is that's an awesome elite pick.
Yeah,
but they those other two,
they could have gotten 3 players as good as two additional players as good as DeBrusk. As someone who's like, I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan too. Like, I can't stand the Boston Bruins. I was laughing so hard because I was like, who? Because I knew DeBrusk. I was like, what?
Yeah.
They picked these other 2 guys. Are you kidding me? Especially with so many good players still on the board, dude. That one. Oh, I remember I was doing a practicum in northern British Columbia watching the draft with my dad, and I was killing myself laughing. I was like, oh, they screwed this up.
3 names in particular. Matt Barzal, literally the next pick. Kyle Connor, literally the pick after that. Jule Eriksson Ek at 20.
Dude, I know.
Oh, well. They one out of 3 ain't bad.
We gave up quite a bit to get those, but anyways.
Yeah, that'll get you into the Hall of Fame in Major League Baseball, but it's not a great percentage for the NHL draft. 2016, Jake Bean.
He's okay.
Carolina. He's 197 games at the NHL level. So obviously it's way too early to tell if these players are hits or misses.
I redid and installed his parents' cabinets. Yep. They lived in Victoria for a little while, and when I was living there in college, they even made me lunch. They're good cooks.
That's quite the by the way.
He played Calgary Hitmen at the time, and I think he played. I think at that point he had one season with the Carolina Hurricanes, or he was playing in Charlotte at the time. And I just knew a lot about that Calgary team. Is when I lived in Calgary, I had season tickets to the WHL, and I was just I have a Hitman jersey still, so I was just like, oh yeah, I know Jake Bean, I saw him play a bit, and they were just pumped, and we just literally started talking hockey. Hey, what you want to join us for lunch? I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. But he's in Columbus now, and he's doing okay. Apparently, he's not super happy in Columbus, but who is? Let's be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's not a great spot to. It's not a great spot.
Not great
these days.
Yeah, it's not. But Jake Bean was a decent pick. But how about 2017? Holy crap!
Yeah, that one was dynamite by the Vegas Golden Knights. Nick Suzuki, and it's funny because you look at what Nick Suzuki has done since he was traded. I don't think Vegas is having buyer's remorse for how that played out by getting Mark Stone in return.
No. I mean, that they moved that asset properly because Mark Stone's one of, if not the best two-way player in the National Hockey League right now. Yeah. But in 2018-19, in Nick Suzuki's last year in Major Junior in the OHL, he won a championship with the Guelph Storm in his first season there, as he was an Owen Sound attack guy. And when they were rebuilding, he was traded to Guelph and absolutely torched in the playoffs. 24 games played, 42 points in the WHL playoffs, dude.
I am also an idiot. He was not traded for Nick Suzuki because Mark Stone played for Ottawa. It was Max Pacioretty.
Oh, Pacioretty, right. So that went right over my head as well, though. That went right over my head as well.
That's for the comment section. I corrected it. I corrected it after I said it.
We swung and we missed the Boston Bruins there.
But still, Nick Suzuki, I'm sure Vegas is not feeling too upset about the fact they got Pacioretty in return, and
who had a few good seasons with the Vegas Golden Knights, and they won a Stanley Cup, so whatever.
Yeah, exactly. They got the ultimate prize, the one that everybody wants. Couple more years to just look at here quickly. Ty Dellandrea was the 13th overall pick for Dallas in 2018. He was just traded to the San Jose Sharks. So maybe Dellandrea starts kind of a second act, but kind of a depth piece for Dallas. And so a little too early to tell in that regard. Spencer Knight drafted one pick after Matt Boldy by Florida in 2019.
I just say goalies in this era who are drafted in the first round, they're special, man. Because even Thatcher Demko was not in the first round, right? And he's a top goalie in the National Hockey League, and he was arguably one of the top goalie picks in that draft, and he still fell to the second round, where Spencer Knight, they took him at 13. So that just shows how much hype this kid had coming into the draft, and so far, so good.
2020, it was Seth Jarvis.
Oh, bro, talk about one of the best 13 overall picks that we've seen so far, right? And I say that because he's only 22 years of age, and look at his production. It's insane.
Yeah, he is really primed for what should be a special career. That's about the last one that we can really confidently do, because Calgary took Matt Coronado in 2021. Hasn't made an impact as of yet. Chicago took Frankie Nazar in 2022. He's only played 3 games so far at the NHL level, so can't really judge that one. But 2023 seems to have worked out all right, because Zach Benson played 71 games for the Buffalo Sabres, and they don't appear upset about his production at all.
Dude, Zach Benson's awesome.
He's pretty legit. I was so jealous when they grabbed him.
He's no Seth Jarvis because Seth Jarvis got 40 points in his rookie season, but no, 11 goals, 30 points in 71 games for a non-playoff team. Quite frankly, a disappointing Buffalo Sabres team this last year. I thought that they were primed and ready to take that next jump, but and make a run for the playoffs. But the East, I mean, man, this year was just nuts. Like there were some teams that I did not expect to do well who absolutely dominated, and there were some teams who like made late pushes as well. Like how the hell did the Capitals make a late push, right? Despite Buffalo having guys on the team who put up way more points than them.
The two I will not ever understand is the Islanders and the Capitals.
Yeah.
And how they managed to like zombie crawl their way to the postseason at the end of the year.
Hey, we can give credit to Minnesota boy Charlie Lindgren for the Washington Capitals. He single-handedly put that team on his back for a good stretch. It's so much so that like they were able to trade Darcy Kemper just straight up. You know what, though? I will say, if there's anyone who's going to ego check that, I was about to just go off cursing. That kid, I mean, you can't be the man in the room or be like a selfish prick in front of Alexander Ovechkin. Now, I thought in front of Anze Kopitar, you wouldn't, like two-time Stanley Cup champion, you wouldn't have been able to do that. But I just feel like Anze Kopitar, he doesn't have that aura that Alex Ovechkin has. Like, Ovechkin runs the show there, dude.
Yeah, Ovechkin.
He runs that locker room.
Ovechkin steps into a room and everybody turns to look.
Yeah,
like that's how things work in Washington. So Pierre-Luc Dubois, or PLD as I like to call him, he's going to find that out very quickly. And he's going to a team that's starting to fade, right? Yeah,
he's not on and I guess he's had experience as a younger player with like Columbus, right? Getting some tough love there on an up and coming team. But like there was a lot of expectation for him in Winnipeg on a good team. There was a lot of expectation for him on the LA Kings, a good team. This Washington team, it's like, all right, put up or shut up, kid, because you're going to be in the top 6. And if you don't deliver, well, you're going to go back down like you were with the LA Kings.
Well, and for Dubois, it's, pick things up or you're going to get bought out, and it's very likely that nobody will pick you up again.
Yeah, and if there's anybody who's going to be able to buy him out, it's going to be the Capitals, who are going to start a rebuild as soon as Ovi checks out, right?
Yeah, they're going to be in trouble, but that's
they had a long run, dude. Yeah. They had a long run, kind of like the San Jose Sharks. They had like a 20-year run. Anaheim, they had like a 15-year run. Like you're always going to hit the bottom. You're always going to have to rebuild.
Yeah. So the overall point for today's episode is that there have been plenty of hits at pick 13, but as we have said throughout draft season, it depends on the fits, the players fit in the particular system that they're going to, and the development of the organization to be able to build that player into what they want him to do at the NHL level. So you can have a guy that plays 15 years at the NHL level for one team, as in Dustin Brown's case. You can have a guy that doesn't get there at all. What it is on the development staff to put that player in the best spot to succeed. So happy drafting for Judd Brackett, Bill Guerin, and the rest of the crew. And we'll have plenty of reaction for you next week here on Locked On Wild. So make sure, before you head out for the day, hit the like button on this episode. Also, make sure to go over and give the Sota Pod a follow on YouTube as well for draft content throughout the rest of this week into next week as well. And be on the lookout for a ton of collaboration throughout the week next week. Should be a lot of fun, and we'll have you as up-to-date as possible on the draft here on Locked On Wild. You can find new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We will catch you on the next episode of Locked On Wild.